And welcome back to this evening edition. This is the Daily Debate. Polls over the last several years tend to show the number of Jewish people around the world isn't growing, but is rather in a standstill. The reasons are mostly due to marriage of Jews to non-Jews, especially in the United States and among other Jewish communities in the Western world. The subject became a main debate in Israel this week after it was published that the son of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is dating a Norwegian woman. And joining me tonight is Dr. Edward Rettig, former director of the Israel office of the American Jewish Committee, and received his ordination from the Hebrew Union College, and Elad Kimelman, fellow at the Jewish Statesmanship Center. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you both, gentlemen. So, you know, I'm going to just start maybe an honest question, maybe. I'm going to just ask you. We're in 2014. We're in the Western world. You know, I don't understand why people should be judged by their religion when they want to choose their partner.
You want me to start that?
I want you to start, yes.
I don't know that your assumption is an accurate one. In other words, I don't think being Jewish is just a religion, only a religion. It's a civilization. And I don't think that on a personal level, I would agree with you that it's not right to judge people based on their religion in the sense that, oh, you're Jewish, you must be A, B, C, D, and E. But on a social level, on a broader public policy level, there are things without which a civilization can't conduct itself, and a population that is part of it, that speaks its language, that relates to its historical literature, that cares about its values, that's necessary.
But who says that values are going with religion? Who says that the Jewish values are better than Muslims or Christian?
I don't think that's really the question. The question is, do we, as people who get married, create homes that educate toward Jewish values, toward Jewish civilization as an ongoing project, something that started 3,500 years ago and will hopefully continue into the distant future. That, I think, is a legitimate question. I don't think the issue of judging people without knowing anything else about them, there's a name for that. It's a bigotry. It's not an opinion. But I do think that as a community needs to think through what it thinks in terms of its own public policies and what it tells itself about how it lives its life.
I would add even more. I agree with Ed on his basic assumptions. I think that we have to remember. First of all, I don't know how will it end with Yair and Sandra.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe it's a seasonal thing, and it's not a
They're
serious.
still young. We're not going to put them in the spot.
Exactly. So and they're also private people. But to the issue itself, there's always, of course, the option of conversion. If people hook up with Jewish partners and like their world of values, then of course there's the issue of conversion that can be adopted. But of course, and unfortunately, in Israel, it's more problematic because it's not just the issue of adopting a specific world of values, but there's also a lot of bureaucracy around it that makes it too difficult
to convert to Judaism. It's a very difficult process here in Israel, and you know. What I'm hearing here, to be a Jewish person, it's part of a value, part of a community, part of a tradition. So when you're converting, you're not actually a Jewish. You're not Jewish by origin. So why is it okay if I'm converting to Judaism and not staying by my own religion with my partner if he is a Jew?
I think that to pick up from the place that Ed said, Judaism, first of all, it's not a religion per se in the way that Islam or Christianity are religions. It's, as he said, it's more of a civilization thing. Now, first of all, everybody can make their own choices in life. If they want to convert, they can convert. And no, nothing is missionary over here. As
yes,
private
of course,
people, yeah.
But you know, it's like what I'm saying is that when you are born a Jew, it's not like when you become a Jew. It's different.
What's
because it's different.
Not once you're converted. Once you're converted, you're a Jew in every way. But I do think that there's a sort of a big, what they call in America, a giant pink elephant, sitting like right there in the middle of the table, and we're not discussing it. A large part of the problem we have in conducting this discussion is that we live in a country that has established a national Jewish church, exactly in the sense that the word church is used in American constitutional law theory. That is, there is a recognized bureaucracy that is mandated by the state to provide religious services the way the post office provides postal services, and that as a result, we pay a terrible price when questions like this come up. I would argue that the whole thing about whether or not the Prime Minister's son is just her study partner, or indeed there's something more going on there, is a ridiculous topic for the hysterical reaction that it elicited. Now, even on a personal level, why do people get hysterical? They get hysterical when there's a question that they don't have the tools to deal with. So you start shouting and throwing things. And that's what we've witnessed here. Whatever, I would suggest that because we have an established church in this country, we have all the detrimental attributes of it. And the main one being that our religious discussions are highly politicized. Everybody who and his uncle jumped on this thing to embarrass the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister, yes.
Now, I don't care what your opinions are about the Prime Minister. I do care that these two individuals who have done nothing illegal are being subjected to a public campaign of discussion of a perfectly private issue with absolutely ulterior motives, and we don't really have a right to do that.
But you know, I can understand when the definition of the country is Jewish and democratic, by definition, it puts the whole discussion in another level. And what I'm trying to understand is, I can understand it in Israel in this way or another. But I'm trying to. I will try to sound politically correct. Is it new, modern racism, and when you judge a person by his own religion? And I'm talking about the three religions. I'm talking about Christianity, Muslims, and Jews. Because for the three religions, it's like something that they cannot think about when they want to think about the marriage of their sons and their daughters.
I want to say something about it. First of all, again, on the private level, I'm a liberal, okay? So anybody can get married with whomever they want. But as a Jewish public, it is important to us to keep a certain state of mind, a certain kind of values that we have, a certain kind of destiny that we aspire to.
Yeah, but it separates you directly from the rest of the world.
No,
it just makes a different talk, a different conversation, it just like puts something in the middle.
First of all, you're right. It does put something in the middle, and in Jewish history, we always see that there's this something in the middle always echoes along history. But it's not a racist thing in the sense that if you read in the Bible or throughout Jewish history, people that converted there are figures that converted to Judaism and became very leading figures inside Judaism. For example, Abraham, the first whom we consider as the first Jew, He himself, he left a home of idol worshipping, and this is actually the first converting. Even the first Jew wasn't an ethnical Jew. Afterwards, there was Yitro that met Moses and converted. And afterwards, there was Ruth, that we even have a celebration of Shavuot to celebrate their conversion.
I just want to make my point clear, because when I say racism, I prefer to it with all religions, because even in Islam, you cannot marry someone who is not Muslim, at least a woman. A man can marry someone who is not Muslim, and she can stay with her religion, because the children take their father's religion. But unlike with Christianity and Judaism. But I'm really trying. Maybe I'm naive. I don't know. But it seems to me when you go on a taxi in Israel, and the first question that the taxi driver will ask you is, "What are you?" And on the other side, when you go on a taxi in the United States or in Europe, they will ask you maximum where you come from. And this discussion is very, very, it's like, rooted in the Israeli community, in the Israeli popularity.
That's really an interesting question. I don't think I've ever gotten on a taxi where the guy asked me, "What are you?" I think I would probably answer fat, but that's just me. I think that there are two separate questions, and we're confusing them. One is the question of if I'm a parent, let's say, and my child says, "I want to marry somebody from Norway who's not Jewish." What does that mean in terms of my personal goals for my personal culture, which is a part of my individuality, which is part of what makes me, me? Human difference is a very important part of what makes humans worthwhile in their own eyes. It is really terrific to me that I can look back on 3,500 years of history, that I can read the Bible and feel like I'm reading some account that somehow relates to my life, that I could share discussions with my grandfather of blessed memory about his memories of his Bible studies, etc. Now, the statistics are not too encouraging. They're not completely unencouraging, but they're not too encouraging about how that kind of continuity is maintained when you have intermarriage. Because when you have intermarriage, it's, normal. I mean, you have two sets of grandparents. And
you have two ways to educate, and you have
more
cultural range to give your children. Like,
that's the question. Do you have more cultural range and depth, or what mostly shows
Depends how you look at it.
Well, what mostly shows up in the research, there's been a lot of research done on this in America for obvious reasons, and what mostly shows up is that the children of intermarriage have had historically very low rates of self-identification as Jews. By the way, one of the results of the new Pew study done by the Pew organization that we still have not quite gotten a handle on or learned all the lessons from, but one of the results is that in the last few years this seems to be shifting. The number of Jewish children of intermarried families who self-identify as Jewish is rising. I think it almost doubled. So, but the key point is there's a legitimate concern, and I think societies are held together by a certain tension between these things. And I think that it's not evil. It's, in fact, part of what makes life a beautiful challenge.
Yeah, sometimes, but some other people will tell you that the religion actually separating between human beings around the world, and this is what is making the world look the way that it's looked.
Yeah, but so does swim trunks. I mean, if a guy like me goes out and wears swim trunks on the beach, believe me, the beach would empty.
I have to finish. I have to end this conversation because I'm sorry, we don't have time, but I will throw on the table something more naive. What about love? We're going out for a small break, 10 minutes break, and then we will be back for the I-24 News one-on-one. Don't go anywhere. 2 minutes break, 10 minutes break, and we'll be back.